meeting to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Detweiler.
Here.
Mr. Hooley. Here. Mr. McCartney. Here. Mr. Wotop.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here. We have a moment for silent prayer and meditation. Thank you. Okay, moving on to section 2.01. Can I get a motion to approve the October 21st, 2024 agenda for the normal regular?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Hooley. Yes. Mrs. Detweiler.
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mr. Wotop.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes. 3.01, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the September 9th, 2024 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mr. Hooley.
Yes.
Mrs. Detweiler.
Yes.
Mr. Wotop.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes. Moving on to section 4.01, superintendent's report.
Thank you,
Dr.
Ms.
Hill?
Walker. We were last together on September 9th, and I just wanted to share, there's been a lot of positive initiatives taking shape throughout the district these past 6 weeks, and I wanted to share some of those with the board this evening. One of these is big picture planning our future ready under direction of Mrs. Quick. We're currently forming the committees right now, having conversations about how this looks. This is definitely a district-wide initiative. It will impact K through 12 students. We're going to start 9 through 12 at first as we continue to roll this out. And how I want to explain what future ready means. And Mrs. Quick, you can correct me if you want, but this is my own in words of what it means is, how do we want to expose our students to opportunities and experiences to better position them so when they approach graduation, they're in a better position for making decisions on their own for college and career. That's the future ready overarching goal. So lots more to come to the board on that over this year to take shape. We're right in the initial planning stages at first. Mrs. Quick, if you want to touch on that, you certainly can. But sometimes this work gets pushed to the side or is not as visible or out in front because of all the other things that are going on. But I just wanted to share with the board this is big plans coming this year that I wanted to share with you. The old Clayton City Elementary building at 340 West Main is on its way down, slowly but surely. But I make an attempt to go there every day and see the progress. If there are neighbors that are outside, I certainly try to stop and talk to see how they're feeling with the process. Overall, the neighbors feel that they're pleased with the process and they're pleased with the noise level and the limited dust. So overall, we're moving along with that building. We're currently in the middle of negotiating a new teacher contract. I can't share with the board enough how impressed I am working with this group of teacher leaders. I guess we have common goals in the process that we're taking to get to those goals. That process is working, and so I just want to emphasize to the board that we're moving right along. We're, majority of the language pieces are done. We're going to, do some financial conversations this week, and I'll report back to the board at the end of this week on our progress with negotiations. And I also want to thank Mrs. Walker and Mrs. McCartney for your participation in that work. Mr. Ratterman, our safety and security coordinator, he is elevating all of our safety plans and drills. I've been consistently communicating to our students our families and the board that it's safety first and teaching and learning second. What Mr. Ratterman is doing is ratcheting up that level of expectation. He has a high standard for our building leaders, and every time that building leaders are going through a safety drill, Mr. Ratterman's asking them each month to make it a little bit more complex so we can really be prepared in the event of an emergency. So I want to thank Mr. Ratterman for having that philosophy, safety first. On September 12th and October 12th, we've actually had 2 community advisory team meetings since our last board meeting. I wanted to share with the board how impressed I am with the overall engagement, participation, and just overall work with this master facility planning and the involvement of our community. The first night, Cat 1, September 12th, we had over 50 community members. I was able to give a state of the schools and just share with the community, the combined work for a year and a half with planning for this process, and then share with them all the other outstanding, the day-to-day operations and the teaching and learning, all the great things that our teachers and students are doing. And then we got to hear from our mayors who gave an update, and then from the village development department, they shared an update about how the process works and how they're collaborating with the district. And then going into Cat 2, we got to hear from Mr. Ingalls. He did a great job of going over the financial state of the district. Just really simple information about where the money comes from and then where's the money going. He fielded some outstanding questions from the community. And then Josh Predovich got right into the work with the options. Now, for Cat 1, when Josh spoke, it was a big picture about the process, how they're going to look for the next 4 months with possible options. Cat 2 was more about, okay, here we are with the options, let's tie this to the costs and the enrollment over time. And then Cat 3, we're really going to dive in and start narrowing these down. So I'm really excited about that work. At this time, I wanted to call on Mrs. Walker and Mr. McCartney, if you would, if you can take your board member hat off just for a minute and try to comment on this work as a community member or as a parent. What has your experience been like?
Do you know how many people were at the second meeting?
Over 60.
Okay. So I left there so excited and grateful. First of all, there's so much information and it's so complicated and there's so many moving parts. And I think Dr. Miller said that it was some simple information about funding, but Mark did a great job, Mr. Engel did a great job kind of explaining all the moving parts and all the different factors, which you can't really put into a 1 or 2 sentence comment on social media. It's complicated. So I want to tell everybody that information, everything that we're going through is available for anybody who wants to see it at
ElevateAlder.com.
ElevateAlder.com. So every meeting that we've had so far, this is the 4th committee that is meeting in the process, the 4th and final. And this is the first time I'm involved. Anyway, super impressed with all the information that we have to consider in the planning process. Even more than that, it was 2 gorgeous nights, and people in the community showed up. And there was even more the second meeting than the first meeting. And people don't have to be there time. They could just leave it up to the district and say, do what you want. They could come in and they could complain the whole time. It wasn't any of that. It was all of us learning together, including me and Bill, who kind of have an inside view on the school district. There were still tons for us to learn. And the questions were so thoughtful. The engagement was impressive. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that, because I've been dying to say it since the last meeting. And I'm looking forward to the next 2 meetings. I thank Mr. Engel a lot for helping us understand how complex the process actually is.
And I would echo a lot of that. The only thing that I really add on is, as you alluded to, we have an inside view, and so we kind of know a lot of these things. And as a parent and as a community member, you interact with certain people all the time, and so you get those people's feedback. And I think the community advisory team has done a great job of getting a great cross section of a lot of different people people that I wouldn't necessarily interact with on a daily basis. And so I've been really impressed about how we've done a great job of trying to capture everyone's view, but it's amazing how in alignment this community is. No matter where you are on the spectrum, no matter what your involvement is with the district, everyone has a very common vision. And so seeing that come to fruition, where this is going to lead, is really exciting.
And I did want to say one other thing. It wasn't just the parents in the community, it was also the teachers and the staff members who are part of this community advisory team that, everybody works all day, long days, to come and give up your evenings. It's just, I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for your input.
Thank you both for commenting. I guess one thing that we can walk away from is I'm confident that, so many moving parts, but everyone's invited to be a part of the process if they want to. If they want to have a voice, they certainly can. We'll welcome anyone. And the board's going to have a tough decision to make in December with this facility planning. Maybe it won't be tough. Maybe it will be tough. But at least we're involving all stakeholders. We're involving anyone that wants to be part of this process to get us to that one goal, which is one plan for facilities for the future of this district. So thank you again for commenting. Mrs. Walker, that is for that concludes my report, but I can certainly go into our commendations here. Mrs. Weekman? Is that Mr. Weekman too? I haven't met you. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Absolutely.
Sarah, if you would, come on up. You can stand on either side. I'd like to just recognize you and say a few things about you. Thank you. Sarah Weekman is our October Excellence in Action Award winner, and I don't know, you came on board about the same time I did, and I just can't think of really a hire that has elevated the district, K through 12 more than you. So I just can't think enough. And you're all about what our theme is about family. You really do make a difference for as many families as you can. So if you would, let me read a few things about you. Our district support specialist, Sarah Weekman. Anytime our building has needed her support with a student or family, Sarah drops what she is doing to come to the building and help. Sarah is the true definition of a servant leader. She organized the food drive and spent the week of the food drive being present at every building. Due to the lack of extra space in the building, she packed up all of the food boxes and stored them in her garage and delivered them on the weekend to the Hope's Lantern storage space for the distribution of families. I should probably be thanking Mr. Weekman for that. Sarah is honestly the most genuine, kind, compassionate, and supportive human. Somehow she supports our entire district and works tirelessly to ensure that students and families have what they need to be more successful, K through 12. The students absolutely adore her at Plain City Elementary, and she is always smiling and welcoming with her presence. She is willing to do anything that is needed at the buildings, from manning the front desk to covering a teacher. She makes sure our students have their basic needs met always. It is an honor to work alongside Sarah, and we are so blessed to have her at JA. Mrs. Weekman consistently demonstrates a giving heart. She relentlessly serves our students, teachers, families, and community. She helps our students and families navigate challenging chapters of their lives with empathy and grace. She shines as a beacon of positivity to our entire school community. She works tirelessly to proactively establish systems of support. Her communication and follow through is superior. Our schools are most certainly a better place because of her work. So congratulations. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. All right, Mrs. Walker, we're all queued up for Plain City Principal and Assistant Principal Savage and Heyman. If you would make your way to the podium, we have a special presentation that Mrs. Quick is going to present on our report card. Mrs. Savage?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So we are going to present some special things that we have going on here at Plain City Elementary. So I'm sure you've heard at some point, whether it's through my newsletter or from students in the community, we are doing the energy bus here at Plain City Elementary. So why the energy bus? We just wanted to give you a little bit of a history. So John Gordon is a famous author. He's well known for lots of books that he's written that really promote positivity, that one word of just positivity. So last year we focused on the coffee bean and the coffee bean for kids, and so we kind of went with that theme for our staff and students, and we were looking for people who were really being coffee beans. We kind of incorporated one word into that, and this year, you know, our district has our one word, and we wanted our students to also have their one word for the energy bus. And then again, it's alignment to our building and our district goals. So we have an individual goal that aligns with our OPES goals, and that's to increase student engagement through this energy bus initiative. So we're going to incorporate the energy bus curriculum in our fitness classrooms. We're going to have assemblies that reinforce the energy bus. We've given each classroom a copy of the Energy Bus for Kids book, which is amazing. Decorate the building with energy bus posters, signs, activities, and things that the kids have made when you came in. I don't know if you saw the chain link that's out there. Our front doors are decorated. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And celebrating student successes through having our Golden Ticket Award, and then celebrating staff successes with the drawing each month. The staff members in the building kind of recommend each other with a bus driver award. We put that in a bus, and then we draw those out and recognize those individuals that way, which is awesome. So what is the Energy Bus for Kids? It's an amazing book about a little boy named George who tends to have a really negative attitude as he goes through his school day. And he has a bus driver named Joy who begins to teach him lessons that turn his day around. So he interacts with Joy throughout the story, and she kind of reminds him of the important things in life that we want to focus on. And there's 5 rules that our kids are kind of focusing on and learning. The first one is to create a positive vision. The second one is to fuel your ride with positive energy. The third one is no bullies allowed. The fourth one, love your passengers. And the fifth one is enjoy the ride. So all of those rules are things that our kids are kind of learning about. They're learning to understand what each one means and how that impacts their life, and how their positive attitude can really turn things around for what choices look like throughout the day, and how successful they are here at school. So we have, if you'll notice when you came in the foyer, we've got our Energy Bus, Certified Energy Bus School banners that Mr. Shaw has worked so hard to put up for us. Emily Byers, she jumped right on our Energy Bus and made some door linings that have the 5 rules, and then, hop on our ticket for the Energy Bus, which is very exciting. So that's awesome. And then we have our PBIS, which is our Positive Behavior Intervention Support Team, which is kind of our AKA Energy Bus team this year. So we have several individuals in the building that are kind of leading this initiative. So Mr. Heyman and myself, we have a grade level teacher from each grade level, and then we have an intervention specialist and a related arts person. So we make sure that we cover all of the people in the building so that we have different perspectives to kind of lead this initiative. We all have our special jobs. So here's our staff. At our opening meeting in August, we all got out in front of the school bus and on the school bus, and we kind of told the teachers, please grab a ticket, join our energy bus this year, and they've done a great job with it. So, and then we do have some videos of some of our students, and we just wanted to we kind of surprised them and said, hey, we want to know what have you learned so far this year, and it could, it could always be interesting, but we included everything. They are kind of hard to hear in some of them, so at the end I'll go over what each one said just so that you can hear it. It's a big building and we're crazy busy, so you can hear a lot going on in the background.
Hi Corinne, can you tell us what you've learned about the energy bus so far this school year? Very good, thank you. Hey, tell me about one of the 5 energy bus rules that you learned.
Create a positive vision when something hasn't happened yet. Create a reason in your mind that something will happen.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, good morning. Can you tell us about one of the energy bus rules that you learned? Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Good morning. Would you please share with us one of the energy bus rules that you've learned? Good. Thank you. Good morning. Could you please tell us about one of the 5 energy bus rules that you learned? Very cool. Thank you. Tell me about one of the energy bus rules that you learned.
Enjoy the ride. Be lovely to your passengers and be nice.
Thank you.
With that joy, teach George to do those rules, and that George kept on trying even when it seemed hard.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
You guys, I love them so much. They are the greatest things ever. So we'll show you the slide and I'll just go over what each one said. So Corinne was the first one and she said there's 5 rules and the energy bus is very positive. Colt said create a positive vision. Create a vision in your mind that something good will happen, like getting an A+ on your test. Colby said fuel your ride with positive energy. Don't let anyone bring you down or anything. Sadie said no bullying allowed. Do not let anybody, oh, I just read the wrong thing. I think I typed the wrong thing twice. Don't let anyone bring you down or say negative things. Hannah said love your passengers and treat your passengers like your family and make sure your words are helpful and not hurtful. Cruz said enjoy the ride, be lovely to your passengers and kind. And then Fitz at the end said Joy teach George to do rules and George kept trying even when it was really hard. So for a spot on, like just a spur of the moment thing, I think that they're picking up some pretty good life skills there. So I'm going to turn it over. This is Mrs. Erin Farwell, and she has done an amazing job. We needed some partnership with how to roll out this curriculum without overwhelming our teachers in the classroom because they're taking on Amplify, they're trying to learn a new curriculum, and so we were like thinking outside the box and how are we going to make sure that every single student in the building can encounter this on a regular, consistent basis and get the message across, and Erin has done an amazing job with that. So I'm just going to let her talk really quickly for a few slides.
So Kathy and Adam called me this summer and they're like, hey, we have a question for you. And I was like, okay. And they're like, so we're going to do this new curriculum, the Energy Bus, and we think you're the perfect person. And I was like, tell me more. And they told me more, and then I was like, yeah, I got you. I got this. I can do this. And so then that night I went out with my school friends, and I'm sure they will tell you that I take my job very seriously. And I was like, I'm the commander, we're on this bus, like I already had the book, I was reading it. I'd already read the John Gordon book before, so I was like reviewing it, and they were like, oh my gosh, they are gonna regret this, like what have they unleashed? So then of course I go home, and my daughter Ashlyn, who graduated from Alder, she's a paraprofessional at Monroe, and she's a talented artist, and I was like, Ash, I need shoes, because that's my thing. Right? The kids are always like on my shoes, like, make your shoes, Mrs. Farmel. And I'm like, I need shoes, they need to have a bus, and they need to speak energy. So she made me my shoes, which has kind of been fun to wear because the kids are like, where did you get those? I'm like, my daughter made them. Is she famous? No, she's not famous. So anyway, so I've got the shoes, got the gear, so I've got the roll. So that's how we started.
And then don't forget, so we actually, Adam and I communicate regularly with the Certified Energy Bus School, and we showed pictures of her shoes. And Dr. Van Allen was like, I have to have a pair of those shoes. So Ashlyn is making him a pair of shoes, which is pretty cool, I think. So
Yeah, she's pretty stoked about that. So she's working on shoes for him. So then as far as Energy Bus, what I've kind of done so far is I took some time to break down the book, and every other week I would read a lesson in the book which kind of broke down the rules and just kind of elaborated, told them more, and made them understand it on their level because it's kind of higher level stuff. And then on the opposite weeks we started doing some activities to go with it. So what we've been working on the first 9 weeks is the first Energy Bus rule, which is the create a positive vision. And so there you can see on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, those are the younger kids, and they're coloring their little energy buses and putting their focus of what they wanted to work on for this 9 weeks. So I think Crossing had like being kind, things like that. Then in the middle, you can see some strips of paper, and we decided that we were going to make an Energy Bus positive vision paper chain. And so we took some time and talked about what that meant, and they put their vision on their paper chain, or they drew a picture, and then we put it all together and hung it outside so that every time they walk into the cafeteria, they can be reminded of one of our first lessons.
So all 600 are out there.
Yes, yes.
We do it 1st through 4th grade.
And then we moved on. One of our activities we worked on this year is our one-word activity. And so with that, I explained that to the kids with what the teachers in the district has done with our Elevate and our family. And so that was really a great way for them to wrap their minds around it. And I was like, you know those t-shirts we wear that say like family and Elevate? And we talked about how we as teachers, why we did that. And I said, well, you know, how do you think we're using that in our classroom? And that made them really kind of understand it, because that's a hard thing to understand. And then so from there, they came up with what their one word would be. And so for this year, I decided I would let them choose their own. And then maybe next year, maybe we'll do like a school one. And those are some of the words that they came up with for their one word. And so they decorated license plates that they took up to their classroom and either hung it on their locker or on a bulletin board or where their teacher let them display it, so that when they see it every day, they're reminded of kind of what their focus is for the day, for the year, as a reminder.
All right, so we held our first Energy Bus assemblies, and the goal behind these assemblies is to get all of our students, and we did K2, and then we did a 3-4 assembly, because getting 700 kids in this space is a lot at this point. So we kind of break our assemblies down. But the idea was to get them in a community so that they could understand that all of them are learning these bits and pieces together, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to share that space, and they listened to the story, they listened to the author read the story to them as a collective group, which I think is really impactful for them to hear that all again and hear that together. And then we talked about some of the rules. The kids knew the rules inside and out. I mean, they were able to say them, and it was amazing. And then we told them, you know, we want you to be on this Energy Bus, and so every student got a ticket to put their name on, and we're gonna put those on big buses at each grade level so that they can show that they're on their Energy Buses. The other important thing at the assembly, we talked about our district one word and how it was family, and that is our commitment, and that we decided as teachers and as leaders in the district that we were gonna focus everything that we had on our school family, our personal families, and making sure that that's a priority wherever we are. So when I'm at school, my teachers and my students are my family, and that's what my priority is. When I'm at home, my family at home is my priority. So just making sure that they understood that, and then they were able to turn and talk about what their one word is to someone else at the assembly. So everyone in the room was talking about what is their priority, what's their purpose, why is it important to them. So it was a really neat experience.
Then there's this.
And then this is, I blame him for this. I don't even know what happened this day, but y'all are gonna find out. It's very interesting. The kids loved it, and Energy Bus, baby, here you go.
World premiere.
Let's ready. Energy Bus, baby.
Stop, collaborate and listen. The bus here with a brand new mission. Grab a hold of us tightly. Energy flows daily and nightly. Will we ever stop?
Let's go.
To the extreme, you won't want to miss it. Get on the bus, let me see your ticket. Ride in the bus that moves. Stop negativity with this tune. In the direction we're going, fuel up your bus, keep the energy flowing. Love it or leave it, decide today. Get on the bus, and here's all pay.
The kids could not believe we did that. They were so excited. And then energy bus place, and they posted our video. They thought it was awesome, and it's really rewarding to share within that community what people are doing, and we plan to, within the next several years, continue this focus and this theme and grow it bigger and keep working on it. So.
And I'll say that the kids' buy-in is more than I ever thought it would be. Because I was like, wow, they really, it's contagious. I mean, to the point where I go home and I'm like, no, that night, is that a positive vision for your chemistry class? And they're like, would you stop using energy bus with us? So I'm like, hey, sit down. So it is contagious, and the kids definitely buy into it.
Yep. So that's it.
Thank you, all of that. With the state report card.
Did you make a music video?
I wish. Gosh.
While Mrs. Quick is getting set up, maybe if I could just have a minute of your time. We have the energy bus and all that climate and culture that we're doing in these buildings, and we have the state report card. I feel that there's a direct correlation to all of the climate and culture, the relationships, the sense of belonging, where students want to be at school, they love their teachers, and they're creating it's not just one word, but it's that initiative to have buy-in with the students, and when you do that for years and years, it does correlate to higher test scores. So I want you to think about this, and I'm actually glad that we reversed these presentations to think about the more we can build climate culture and our students want to be at school and there's buy-in, the report card's going to continue to grow. So with that, Carla, we're ready for your
I
fireworks.
could not agree more with Dr. Miller. And I thank you all for letting me have a few minutes to share both celebrations and then areas of opportunity for the district to grow. As we did last year, we made some great gains across all grade levels in the district. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to share that with the board. Can you see that, or do you want me to turn it? So our overall rating as a district is a 4, which means exceeds state standards, which is wonderful, but also allows us to have a little bit of room that we can continue to grow. So we'll talk about that at the end. I'm going to go through each of these components that make up the total score that the district received. So the first area that the state looks at is achievement. And so the achievement component measures academic achievement using levels of performance. And so you can see that back in 2018-19, we were at a 98.8, and then COVID happened. And all districts across the state of Ohio took a pretty heavy dip. But you can see that we're climbing back up to where we were. And so again, like last year, we made almost a full point of a gain in the area of achievement, which doesn't sound like a lot, but overall it's a lot more growth than maybe some would have expected in a short time. So the way that we get that performance index is you look at the various achievement levels of our students. And so the higher that they achieve, the more points that the district receives. And so an area where we made a lot of gain, you can kind of see, again, this trend. We've grown, but one of the areas that we made a lot of growth last year is with our Advanced Plus students. And so that is those students that are in an accelerated class. Most of ours are from mathematics, and so when you have kids that are taking a grade level above where they should be, you get more points. And so that you can see was a pretty large gain, and we anticipate that will grow substantially with all of the supports we put in place with the math pathways and our gifted services. This report card, again, is for last year, so this does not reflect any of the changes we made with our gifted and our accelerated services. And so we hope to see a lot of gain this year when we receive our report card for next year. And again, you can just see where our areas of performance are. It's really exciting to see that the percentage of students in the advanced, which is that highest category, 24.8% of our students are there, is almost the same as proficient, which is 25.4. So the bulk of our students are in those top 3 areas on the state report card, which is excellent. I'm just going to keep going, and then I'll take any questions you have, though. The next measure on the report card is progress. We scored in the area, we had 3 stars here, so that's just evidence that the district met student growth expectations. This is definitely an area of opportunity for the district. You can see that the colors have different meanings. Most of our subjects and grades were in these 3 highest, so evidence that they met, significant evidence that we exceeded, or significant evidence that the district exceeded student growth expectations by a large magnitude. So that's some of these dark gray. That's the highest you can be. We have some here that there is no value added data, so we don't get scored there. Green means we met growth. And then the area that we really want to pay attention to as we're thinking about how do we continue to improve are those red areas. And we do have a few areas where we're taking a really deep dive into the data to figure out what are things we can do, put in place to increase growth in those areas. So a couple of target areas as we look are 4th grade mathematics, 8th grade language arts, and then a few areas like high school algebra, American history, and American government. We're working with a data consultant, Tom Fry, who works with districts across our state, and he is really diving deep into that data with our teachers, and we've already put lots and lots of really good pieces in place to see improvement in those areas. The next area is gap closing, and this is such an area of celebration for the district. We significantly exceed our state standards in closing educational gaps. So that is the one part of the report card that looks at all of our subgroups. So for example, you can see down here, all students as a group, white, non-Hispanic as a group, students with disabilities, Hispanic, economically disadvantaged, multiracial, and our English language learners. And then they look at each of those different subgroups, and the red dot shows what the target was, and you can see we've exceeded the target for performance index on almost all of our groups. So the 2 areas that we know we need to really focus on, and this has been an ongoing conversation with Dr. Miller, Mr. Ingalls, and Becky Kroll, who leads our student services department, our English language learners and our Hispanic group. Those are 2 areas where we haven't yet met the achievement. So we're going to be working really hard to figure out what supports do we need to put in place to support that subgroup of our students. For math, you can see that we're meeting or exceeding all subgroups when it comes to achievement, which is excellent. When you look at growth for some of our subgroups, this would be, the red line would identify, this would be a regular or traditional growth where you want to be, but then each of these subcategories, how much growth they're making. So all of these subgroups made either a year's worth of growth, or here, these 2, which would be our Hispanic and our English language learners, they're growing. So those are our 2 fastest growing subgroups, but they're just not achieving where the rest of our students are. So these are definitely areas we have made a lot of growth and will continue to grow. And then some of these other categories of students, we're going to have to continue to dig in and figure out what do we need to do to ensure growth. Same in mathematics. This bar where we have some negative growth is our students with disabilities. So again, Becky Kroll and our student services department have been really digging in to figure out what do we need to put in place to ensure our students who are identified with disabilities, what do we need to do to ensure their growth. And then you can look, here is our gifted, and so value added, 4 stars, which is exceeding the state standards. We met value added. Our performance index for our gifted students was a 117. Unfortunately, it's a moving target, so every year for gifted, it continues to move up and up. So had it been last year, we would have met it, but because that is a moving target, we did not meet it. Again, this is an area we are working really hard on. This was before we added some layers of gifted services and accelerated services. So we anticipate this category will grow over the next year. So here is the area we looked at last year as a board and as a district, gifted identification services. We know that we identified quite a few students, but we had not been serving a good majority of those students in the area of gifted. So we, as a board, you allowed us to add a gifted coordinator and a full-time position, and then we're going to continue to look at gifted to determine what else we need need to do to ensure that we're serving kids that we identify. Okay. For graduation, you can see that for all of our subgroups, we are exceeding what the expectation would be for the state. So in all of the subgroups, we're graduating the majority of our students, which is wonderful. Chronic absenteeism, the district was well below the expectation for the state, which is good. We want to be below that target. The target was 18.3%, and we were at 15.6%, which is really good. And we are doing a pretty big shift in the area of attendance. We're looking at attendance with our secretaries on a very, very regular basis. This is something we've spent a lot of time on as a district this year. We've made sure that all 5 of our buildings are coding attendance in the exact same way. We've been bringing our secretaries together as a team to talk about what constitutes an excused absence versus an unexcused absence. So this has definitely been an area of growth for the district. So again, we just hope to continue to see the district exceed those state standards every year.
So does that mean 15.6% of students are chronically absent?
So when you think about chronic absenteeism, it includes all absences. So it's absences that would be your medically excused absences. It would be going on a college visit. There are no absences that are pulled out of chronic absenteeism. So that's why they allow for a much larger number. But yes, that is what that means. I know, it seems like a larger percent.
Could you kind of define what chronic is? What is chronic?
So chronic means that a student has missed at least 10% of their instructional time. So it can be for any reason, excused, unexcused, medical, vacations, any type of an absence would be coded into chronic absenteeism. So again, this is why we're really looking at this as a district. We're working with Mitch Gargak, who works with us on attendance and enrollment. And we've been talking a lot about this. This is the area that the state really wants us to focus on, is chronic absenteeism. We had shifted to looking at really thinking about excessive absences and habitual truancy, but the state is pushing the district, all districts, to continue to look at chronic absenteeism to really pull down the number of days kids are missing.
Do you know of that 15.6 which are traditionally excused or unexcused?
That's a great question. I could get that data. I don't have it quickly that I could pull it up, but I could definitely get that data.
It's hard to knock down excused absences, right? But
Right.
unexcused would be helpful to know
Sure.
what that percentage is.
Yeah, we can send you that data.
So somebody who has, like, getting their braces on and they're in school regularly to go get their braces on are considered chronically absent?
All of that counts against. When you think about chronic absenteeism, those medical absences don't count toward habitual truancy or excessive absence, but they absolutely count toward chronic absenteeism. They don't take out any, there's no absence that they would take out of that number.
But they would have to be missing 10% of their day every day.
10% of looking at attendance for the whole school year. So 10% of their,
Well, for 3 months.
It's not that much. It's part of
18 days.
it's a lot.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. In high school, but 7th grade or 8th grade.
Sorry, pardon us.
No,
Sorry.
you're fine. It does feel like a lot, and I don't know that I shared that last year. If I did not share that, I should have. It is something we're really working on this year. Early literacy is the next measure that the state looks at, and the district is meeting the state standards in early literacy. We've actually made a lot of gains in all categories except one, which I'll explain in just a second. So overall, we have that 75.2% when you look at all these together. Last year we had 71%. So that is the overall total score that gives us our 3 stars. When you look at grade 3 proficiency, we have 74.8% of our students proficient. This is definitely something we're working on and looking at as an elementary team. Kathy, Adam, Julie, myself, and our team are all looking at this data and really diving into data maybe more than we have in the past to determine how to push this number up. One area that Mr. Fry or Dr. Fry says that we should be really celebrating because we are tracking much higher than a lot of districts is in the area of improving literacy. So this looks at students who were on a reading improvement improvement plan and determining how many of those students that were on a plan were moved off of a plan. And so 42.1%, last year we had 27.5%. This is our highest total that we've had in many, many years. So that's an area of celebration and also an area of opportunity that we can continue to grow. But I believe that's a testament to the interventions that we're putting in place and all of the data that we have been looking at. And we're only continuing to bolster the amount of data we're looking at on a regular basis.
Do you know how much were that huge, the ELL and whatever the other one, all Hispanic population that were not closing the, well, we're closing the gap, whatever the.
They're growing, but not meeting
Okay.
achievement.
How much is that impacting this? Do you know?
Quite a bit.
Right there.
Because when you think about the students that this early literacy measures grades K to 3, many of our students, we have many students at Monroe, and then we are a growing population of students that are English language learners at Plain City. While they're working so hard to catch up, when you come in with limited English or no English, it's really hard to take a state assessment that is measuring English proficiency. And so we do expect growth in that area, which is why we celebrate that part of it, but the proficiency is definitely impacted by the number of English language learners we have. Not in dispute, and we're going to continue to try to grow in that area, but definitely something that we're paying attention to. Promotion to 4th grade, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to promise you that we've worked and worked and worked. We promoted all of our students, so this number should be 100%. We worked with our EMIS coordinator, we worked with Dr. Fry, and at the state level, and for some reason, we could not get this number changed. We did promote all of our 3rd graders to 4th grade. So this actually, I should have put 100, but I went with what the state said, but we should have had 100% there. It did not impact our overall outcomes, but it was pretty frustrating to Mindy, who worked really hard to get that right, and we don't know what happened. So we might have called Kathy and Julie about 100 times to figure out who that student was, but we never could find it. Any more questions? Another area of great celebration for Jonathan Alder is graduation. We significantly exceed state standards in the graduation rates. And again, this is a measure of cohort graduation, both 4-year graduation and 5-year graduation. And Jonathan Alder is very comparable to our surrounding districts, very, very high, much higher than the state, which is here, the green. Two things that I think is so important for our community to understand is that in addition to our high graduation rates, 35.8% of our students earn at least 12 college credits through dual enrollment while they're in our school district. So if you think about that, 12 college credits, that's a huge cost savings to our community. This puts us at the top 12% in the state. So such an area of celebration for JA, and also a celebration for our families who are not paying those dollars when they send their children to college for that 1st or 2nd year. That's just something I think we really need to continue to highlight and celebrate as a community. Also important to note, Dr. Fry wants us, he pushed this really hard, is that we have ACT remediation free rate of 30.1 of our grad, which puts us in the 100th best in the state. There's a lot of districts in the state, and that puts us at this top 16%. So those two statistics are excellent, and this is an area that Mr. Hayes and Mr. Clark in the high school are continuing to work on. I'm going to show you in just a minute how they're looking at that. But it's
What's the ACT remediation?
really, there's no need for remediation for those students, so that they're when you take the ACT, there's no need to remediate and go back and fill in those gaps. I can send you more info on it too.
That's in post-secondary.
Yes. Okay, one area that just to be really aware of, and Dr. Miller really kind of touched on this a minute, but there is going to be a new measure on the state report card. It's slated to come out this school year, so this would be a report to you in October of next year. But they've added a college, career, workforce, and military readiness measure, which really is looking at those future-ready skills that Dr. Miller talked about. And so we're going to show you how we're planning for that. This is an area where Mr. Hayes has a lot of interest, and we've been talking about this. We've been meeting with Dr. Miller, our teaching and learning department. Nicole Schrock has been doing a lot of work in this area. And I know you can't really see this, but I'll send it to you. So this is really thinking about how our district has a long-term impact on student outcomes. There's multiple measures that create the number of stars that a district will receive. So ACT participation, the remediation free for ACTs, SATs, which you can see we don't do SATs here in the district, so we don't get points for that. That's something we're talking about. The number of students who earn honors diplomas and industry recognized credentials. That's something Nicole Schrock and Emily Byers have been really digging into with Mr. Hayes and Mr. Clark to really figure out how can we capitalize on some of the things we're already doing in the district and get those industry credentials. For example, we're starting a drone club at the high school, and you can get an industry credential for participating in that drone experience. So we can send kids out with those drone certifications. They can work for a realtor, make big bucks, taking pictures for realtors. Just really, what are the things we're already doing that we can really capture and make sure that we are, if there's something a little bit more that we need to do, like for example, CPR. We're already teaching CPR, but we're maybe not credentialing our students. Let's start credentialing our students in CPR. So those are things we're looking at. And well, I don't know if there's any others that you're thinking of. I didn't cover it. That's something she's really helping us with a lot. Advanced placement participation, AP exams, dual enrollment credit. You can see that's an area where we are really doing well. AP scores of 3 or better. Military enlistment, you can see we don't. I think we have kids going into the military, but you can see we're not capturing that. And so what can we do as a district to capture those points there to make sure we're giving our students credit for going into the military? Apprenticeships, that's something that our team's been talking about a lot. How can we offer internships and apprenticeships right at our high school so that maybe a student doesn't have to go to tolls for the internship? Is there something we could be doing at the school to maybe have our students working in our schools? We have one student from Tolls right now working at Plain City Elementary, but are there students at the high school that would really be interested in being a future teacher? And if so, could they be in our elementaries or middle schools working alongside teachers to learn more and figure out if that's what they want to do? CTE technical assessments for the score proficient or better, and then the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seals, which is something we're also working really hard on, and you can see we're probably not capturing all of those points. So this is something we really are going to focus on as we continue to move forward. So I know I'm out of time. I'm way past my time. Dr. Miller, really quickly, I just want to share. So when we think about all of this information, we really put it into 3 buckets of how we're going to move forward into the next few years. And so Tyler, Jester, and Dr. Miller and our teaching and learning team are really working, and Mr. Ingalls are working on putting together a strategic plan document to present to you. And it's really going to have 3 major buckets that we show you where our goals and our work is going to lie over the next few years. So one is whole child success, and that's really making sure our standards are aligned, that we have a structure in place to support every single child. I think I met with Mr. McCartney and he said, it's like every child has their own plan. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. We look at every child's data and figure out what do they need to grow and make it to reach their highest potential. Curriculum design, resources, that all falls into that bucket. Future ready learning is a huge area of focus for us as a district. So thinking about engagement, skills, industry, college, workforce readiness. And we aren't starting that in grade 9. We are wanting to start that in kindergarten. And so what can we be doing starting in kindergarten to make sure our students are ready for the future? And then finally, wellness, which would be safety, feeling like I belong, where at my school, things like the energy bus or the health system at Monroe, our advisories at the high school and the junior high, and the WIN period at Canaan. And underneath of that, we're really keeping in mind this leadership structure that we have, and I'll show you that in a minute. How are we being financially responsible, and our facilities master plan? Because as Dr. Miller said, the facilities are really support the teaching and learning. And so we have to keep that all in mind. When you think about our aligned leadership, I think I sent this out maybe, but we have put in place a district leadership team, which I'm seeing some folks from the district leadership team that are sitting out here today. That's the team that comes together and talks about these 3 big buckets that we're engaging in. We have leadership teams at the building and at the teacher level to ensure that the work makes it to the classroom. That's our goal, is that all of this work that's happening in the district, if it doesn't get into the classroom, then it really is for naught, so. And then Dr. Miller talked about this future ready, idea of being future ready. We're working on a roadmap to think over the next 1, 2, 3, and 4 years, what are we going to be doing to make sure that our students are ready for the future? And again, that starts in kindergarten. And then underneath of that would be the skills that we're going to put in place. So every child that walks out of first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade understands work ethic, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, global fluency, and oral and written communication. These skills really came out of the educational visioning process, where we heard parents say things like, I want my child to be able to go to an interview and not be nervous when they're 18. Like, how do we make sure they have those skills to be successful? And then thinking about what industries are in our region that we need to be prepared for, what experiences do we want to provide, and what professional development do our staff members need in order to make this come to life. And then finally, when you think about wellness and belonging, how do we increase our students' feelings of sense of belonging? Right now, we have really good data that at grades 3 to 5, 69% of our students rated this really high. At 6-12, 53% feel like they have that sense of belonging, and these are two statistics that we can definitely improve by doing things like Plain City said with the energy bus and all of these things that improve culture.
Can you break down 6 to 12 further? The only reason I wonder is because, like, if you think 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, they start going in many different directions. Do we start losing kids later, or is it
Yes.
from 6 to 12?
And I could give you as much data on this as you want. It drills down into even down to the question that the students were asked. We have this for each grade, we have this for each building, so we absolutely could share that. I don't have it readily available, but I absolutely could share that. And yes, you're right, Mr. McCartney. That's pretty typical, because you can see we're in the 40 to 59th percentile in the nation in this area, which is pretty average, and I think we can do better than 53%, even if they're at 10th, 11th, or 12th. So what are we going to do? There'll be a group of leaders, teacher leaders, working on what can we do to make sure that our kids have the student experience that makes them feel like they belong in our schools.
Wow.
I tried to do as fast as I could, but I knew it was going to take longer.
Mrs. Quick, I can't thank you enough for the detailed overview. And I wanted to share with the board too, this is a collaborative effort with Nicole Schrock and Becky Kroll and this team. They're just outstanding. I never walk into an office or a conference room and see one of them working independently. They're doing all this work together, involving the administrative team and building relationships with the teachers and trying to get the building as much as possible as well too. So thank you, Mrs. Quick. And I also want to thank our Plain City Elementary leaders, Mrs. Savage, Mr. Heyman, Mrs. Farmwald, for presenting tonight. Great stuff. Again, want to iterate to the board, the work that you guys start doing at the kindergarten level, it trickles into the larger grade levels, and the assessment scores are impacted by that. So thank you for your work. And then I wanted to congratulate Sarah Weekman. I just can't thank you enough for being part of the team and being with us this evening. We could recognize your efforts. Mrs. Walker, that does it for my report and our presentations.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the presentations. I always feel that positive energy is contagious, but Mrs. Furlong, I think that they feel it from you. They feel it from you.
Oh, thank you.
And that makes a big difference too. So all of you at Plain City, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, public participation, any comments?
That we're done.
None.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to section 8, the treasurer's report. I'll turn it over to Mr. Engel.
Financial report.
Yep, I've done that. The financial report.
So moved.
So September was a pretty quiet month for us overall. Most of our real estate hit in August as opposed to September as it did last year. So where a lot of the variances are from, just that timing of when those payments hit. We also received reimbursements for E-rate, which is technology, Bureau Workers' Comp premium, and from Schneider Electric. That'd be the other sources of revenue that came in this past month. So starting in September, our new teacher contracts took effect. So that'd be all of returning teachers as well as our new staff, plus their benefits, especially if they're new staff joining our benefit plan. So we saw a corresponding increase there with their base step increases. We also did quite a bit of capital outlay, which is equipment for a carpet cleaner in the buildings, classroom hardware, and some new desktop computers in our computer lab. And then overall, we're on track to start for the last year.
Reimbursement with Schneider Electric.
It was, we paid, I'm trying to recall exactly what happened there. It was a credit for some work that they did in a kind of calling back. So it was a credit.
Mark, you said, I'm sure as you said on the expenditures, the 11% increase was your, mostly?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, the expenditures up 11% year over year. Some of that inflation, some of that new computer equipment, or what's the bulk?
It's inflation and also personnel. So as personnel contracts, bulk of our personnel is on teachers. The first pay on their new contracts is $715, so that's being factored in.
Mrs. Detweiler, I just went on your question. As we were transitioning from Schneider over to Geiger, and with the help of Mr. Bennett, there were a little give and take throughout this transition for who's going to be doing the HVAC work. So it was all done in collaboration with either the credit or bringing them back in to help us transition over to Geiger.
Mrs. Detweiler,
Yes.
Mr. Hooley,
Yes.
Mr. McCartney,
Yes.
Mr. Vota,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to section 8.02, can I get a motion to accept the following grants and donations?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Engel, do you want to address some of the donations that are listed under here?
So we're always appreciative of our community for their support of our school district. The 39 tables, that's from PC3, which Mr. Heyman is an organization that he's, they do the card shows. So essentially they provided tables for our use, so we're just formally approving that donation. The $13,750 from Memorial Health as an annual contract contribution for naming rights of the field. And we have from Mr. Rule being used for our huddle cameras or huddle footage for all of our teams to use to film their practices and be able to use game film, as well as new equipment such as volleyball posts, storage equipment, weight room equipment upgrades, team equipment, and more. So that's part of how those funds are going to be used. The OSLN STEM Classroom Grant Program, that is thanks to Mrs. Emily Byer, who goes above and beyond to find new ways to support our science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs here at the district. This was a competitive grant that was under embargo. We couldn't publicize it until last week. But we're very thrilled that she was able to continue that support. And finally, we got the Jonathan Alder Education Foundation to purchase a learning platform for Canaan and the junior high. Mrs. Schrock, did you have that one up? If you can answer a question on that. And finally, thanks to Mr. Finnick, we got $200 from the NICE Oklahoma's special ed programs.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Roll call?
Mr. McCartney,
Yes.
Mr. Hooley,
Yes.
Mrs. Detweiler,
Yes.
Mr. Vota,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Section 8.03, can I get a motion to approve the then and now purchases as authorized by the treasurer?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Engel?
Yeah, so corner board policy, any then and now invoices over $3,000 comes to the board for approval. We've been going back and forth with this company for a while. This is a subscription that renews every July 1st. He sent us a bill for June 30th. Trying to get them to change the date and not be able to get through to them. But this is a vital service for especially for our high school. That's where we were scheduling. And update our graduation plans. We have to do career exploration assessments, track the volunteer hours for the service seals. That's one of the graduation seals. Access to transcripts. Help streamline and secure our workflow for our high school students. So it's a very vital program. We just had a billing issue, essentially.
Any comments or questions? Okay, roll call?
Mr. Votak,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. McCartney,
Yes.
Mr. Hooley,
Yes.
Mrs. Detweiler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Section 8.04, can I get a motion to approve the disposal of the following unused or out-of-service district property as presented? And there are a number of items listed on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I'm not going to read the items, but they are on today's agenda. If you guys want to go over. They're include things like
Mrs. Walker, I can just comment if you're okay
Go ahead.
with this. I actually initiated this and directed our director of operations to go through our storage areas. And once I was walking through different areas where, over the decades, things just tend to, we're not using anymore, so let's put it in the corner, and that happened over years and years. What's working? What are we using? So I asked our director of operations to do an inventory because there wasn't an accurate one on site, work with Mrs. Robbins in the kitchen to make sure we're seeing what is used or what's not used, and let's start organizing some of our storage spaces and using it the way it needs to be used.
So I'm wondering if things being broken means they're gonna be disposed of, or are they gonna be auctioned?
Things that are broken, we were requesting to dispose of. Anything that's working, we can certainly auction.
Because I feel like the used equipment market is still very hot, and I think just because we can't fix it, doesn't mean no one will. Like, we've sold stuff, cars that are wrecked, and people, you can't sell it fast enough. So maybe consider, depending what the brokenness is of
Especially like the tractor and the mower, there are lots of people
that will buy stuff like that and fix it. Just to keep in mind.
I think considering if we're going to do an auction, just put it all on there and see what happens.
True. And if nobody buys it, then maybe we'll dispose of it.
Right, and this action basically authorizes either auction or dispose of.
Yeah, Mr. McCartney, would there be a program at tolls where some of these broken items would be available to kids at tolls, or tolls kids can fix it? Absolutely.
They have a small engine repair to the mower. And a diesel for the tractor too.
Yeah, there's definitely a
The
program.
one is a diesel, that's not.
There's definitely a program at Tolls. There's definitely programs at Tolls. We just, I know at our meeting last Thursday, we accepted donations for four-wheeler and some engine, I can't remember what it was, but that seemingly we're unrunning, but Tolls is gonna take it. If there's nothing else, they can take it apart, see how it works.
And even if we're disposing of stuff like that, scrap is something, that stuff can be hauled to the scrap yard for some kind of payout.
Okay. Well, any further questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Votak. Yes. Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mr. Hooley.
Yes.
Mrs. Detwiler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Section 9.01, tools report. Turn this over to Mr. Craig.
My apologies. The day got away from me and I completely forgot about the whole report. So I am not prepared for this section. Oh, thanks. Let's see. Thank you, sir. A lot of this stuff is things that I've already reported to you along in the past. The only real new thing would be we finally set a date for the Total Appreciation Dinner for all of the associate schools. So if you can mark the calendar for Wednesday, April 23rd. 4/23.
Okay, moving on to section 10, personnel consent items. We have 10.01 resignations, 10.02 employment, 10.03 phone stipends, and 10.04, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the employment and personnel consent items as presented, and then we can go back and talk about it. So desires.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any comments or questions regarding 01, 02, or 03? Actually, can you discuss the phone stipend?
So I asked lots of questions on this. There is board policy on reimbursing some employees for the use of their cell phones. Everyone listed here are individuals that I may contact or contractors may contact, or if there's after hours or on the weekend work that we need to conduct to make sure that we're ready for the next day or ready for the Monday, they're using their own cell phones. And here's a token to help reimburse them for their personal cell phone use. The district does not purchase cell phones for any employees. This is a $25 stipend that helps them pay towards their personal cell phone.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Comments? Roll call?
Mr. Hooley.
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mr. Votak.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mrs. Detwiler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to section 11.01, can I get a motion to declare transportation impractical and offer payment in lieu of transportation for the 24-25 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? We've been doing this periodically. Yes. There's nothing here except applicants.
Yes, I did check in with the state. There is no deadline for the parents, and they're making it as easy as possible for parents to request transportation, and if it's not practical on our end to seek payment.
Roll call?
Mr. Votak.
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mr. Hooley.
Yes.
Mrs. Detwiler.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
11.02, can I get a motion to approve the attached MOU with JA?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Engel, can you address this?
Yes, so during, in the current collective bargaining agreement with JAEA, there's a provision where the HRA insurance plan would sunset June 30th, 2025. The issue with that is that our plan year runs from January to December, which will put them in the middle of a plan year. So if you were an employee on an HRA, and that plan goes away for the collective bargaining agreement, you'll have to then start over on our HSA plan, which means nothing that you paid out of pocket before July would count towards your deductibles. So everything reset. So I worked with Mrs. Lorenz and her team to basically correct this, so no one's unintentionally harmed. Certainly was most likely just kind of oversight, not really knowing the implications of that original sunset date. So this MOU would then just move it all up into HRA plan will discontinue as of the end of this year, so 2024. So anyone who elects to stay on the district insurance will be on the HSA plan starting January 1. So that means that they don't have to worry about the deductibles resetting in the middle of the year. We also have a provision in here where one of the main differences between the HRA and the HSA plan was the district's contribution on the HRA plan was all up front. So we provide $2,000 for a single plan, $4,000 for a family plan. We did reach an agreement in this MOU that those transitioning from one plan to the other, because of this MOU, would receive all their HSA money up front. That'd be a one-time occurrence. After 2025, everyone will be on the same schedule. Ms. Lorenz, anything you want to add?
No, I appreciate the proactiveness. I know this healthcare costs are a big deal to our staff, and so.
I believe the number of employees impacted is minimal, under 20?
34?
Yeah, I think 34 across all the
Yeah,
different.
across,
Classified.
yeah, one administrator, several classified, and several teachers. So everyone's been communicated with. We've been, we had office hours essentially where my office was open, everyone could come and ask questions, sent out loads of information, so everyone's aware of what's happening and why and what to do.
Great. Oh, I appreciate your work on this, Mr. Engel, for getting everyone up to speed and making the correction before it became a big problem. Any additional comments? Great. Roll call.
Mr. Vota,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. McCartney,
Yes.
Mr. Hooley,
Yes.
Mrs. Detweiler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Section 11.03, can I get a motion to approve the overnight trips as requested?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Dr. Miller?
This is a standard request per board policy. Out of state or overnight trips are to be board approved. Doesn't happen too often, but with wrestling you do, when you have a back-to-back, or when you have days back-to-back in a tournament that's a couple hours away, it's probably safer to allow them to stay overnight and then traveling late and then returning the next morning. So these are the tournaments that athletic director Rule and Mr. Hayes recommended to me, and I'm recommending to you.
Dr. Miller, can you give us some idea on like how many student athletes you'd be talking about and what the level of adults would be?
Typically, they take the entire wrestling program. Those that are wrestling at the high school. So I would like to get back to you on the exact numbers, but definitely over 20 will be traveling.
And do a estimate on the number of adults to be on the trip supervising?
Every coach goes, and there's more than 5 adults that are either paid coaches, paid assistant, or volunteer coaches.
Will the same procedures be followed for overnight trips that we have previously discussed?
That hasn't been, no, that's something that we can discuss, but no, there wasn't plans for that procedure to take place for these specific trips.
Is that because they don't leave from the school and they just are driven by parents, or are they bused?
They're bused.
So we could implement that.
Anytime our
What are you
student,
referring to? I'm sorry.
Just the screening and the for overnight trips.
2 years ago, we had an incident with students taking items off of the campus that they shouldn't have been. Is this something that we want taking? They were in possession of things that they shouldn't have been, and there was an incident. So do we want to put those procedures in place for this athletic tournament? It's something that we can certainly discuss.
stay in contact with you and while still approving the actual trip itself, and then continue to monitor and discuss possibilities with Dr. Miller?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, I guess, every trip increases the district's exposure. They're staying overnight in Ohio State. Is that a necessary required?
Not required.
Well, is that a necessary district trip?
You know, I think this is an athletic event, it's a state, you know, to the state, so all of our athletics, when they go to state competition, will go, like volleyball, I think goes to Dayton, Wright State, they're usually at a university.
Well, but do they normally stay at night?
Uh,
This is a half an hour away.
Yeah.
That's all.
I get the distance ones, you know, and obviously you don't, but
I know that the
stay at home.
I know that the state wrestling can run late into the night, and you, depending on whether you win or lose your match, you might have to wrestle early in the morning. So I understand your concern on that. I share it. I also wonder, like, how many hotels are there super close to Schottenstein Center? They might be. It seems silly to be staying in Dublin if you're coming from Jonathan Alder. So I think it's maybe a judgment call. I trust the coach on that, but I'd be curious to know, Dr. Miller, on the monitoring process that Eric had talked about. Is there a monetary cost affiliated with that?
It's not paid through by the district, but through the athletic programs fund that they've raised.
That's for the boosters.
This might also just be a coach philosophy or preference. If he can be near, know what time lights are out for some of the boys, that might be his preference over sending them back, you know, to ride home after the bus gets back and not knowing what time they're getting to bed and knowing that they'll be able to make it back at a certain time as well too. So I trusted the coach's judgment on how he has preferred that the team stays together on a weekend like this.
Yeah, and even more likely to Bruce's point, wrestling is so, you just never know. There's no way to know when you're gonna wrestle and how it's gonna play out until kind of last minute, so I can see that being valid.
So we can vote on approving the trips and examine the monitoring of the other stuff that we apply to other situations at a later time.
I would like to recommend that you approve those 4 trips, and I can work with the administration on procedures for a search and make sure I have exact numbers for adult athlete ratios and where they'll be staying.
Great, appreciate that, thank you. Okay. Any further questions? Roll call?
Mr. Hooley.
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Votak.
Yes.
Mrs. Detweiler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Section 11.04, can I get a motion to approve the attached resolution to participate in Data Solutions request for proposals for competitive retail electric services?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Engel, coming back to you.
Yeah, so this is a program, and we're part of a consortium with Meta Solutions. We're part of it's called the Ohio School Consortium, and what they do is do a request for proposal on our behalf for electric rates. So this will be for a period of up to 5 years, starting in July of 2025. And then we'll start the process late this month and have a selection of competitive retail provider by December 2024. So right now we have 2 separate electric providers. American Electric Power serves the high school, Canaan, and the junior high, while Howell Edison serves this building and Monroe Elementary. So essentially what we're recommending is just authorize us to be part of the request for proposal process for this consortium, so they can do the heavy lifting for us to get us the best possible rate for up to the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Is that flexible once they find us a better rate? Are we then locked into that rate?
We would be locked in. The initial term is usually 2 to 3 years, so we can then go back out to bid sooner than 5 years. But no matter what, remember what happens, the RFP is only good for 5 years. So we have to do this process again in 2029 at the latest.
But possibly sooner.
But possibly sooner, if for whatever reason there's a change in rates, we can definitely go back out sooner.
Roll call?
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Votak,
Yes.
Mrs. Detweiler,
Yes.
Mr. Hooley,
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and also on new business, section 9.05, can I get a motion to approve the proposed 30-year, 100% non-school TIF in Derby Township, Madison County, and the school district compensation agreement?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is, from my perspective, this is a decision that I don't think lightly. I don't think anything people on the board do, I don't know for sure. I would just encourage the community tips are very boring, tedious, but extremely consequential to the future of our district. And I spent about 8-10 hours trying to understand them, what it means to the district. I don't think I really fully understand it yet. I want to thank Mr. McCartney, Dr. Miller, Mr. Ingalls for helping me understand it. I view my responsibility as a board member to be A, in compliance with the law, and B, to be a fiduciary for the district. So that ultimately made my decision on how I'll vote on this. And I'm glad we get to vote on this, because if we were presented with a 1075 TIF 10-year, we wouldn't get to vote. That decision on whether we get a 1075 or a full 3100 is made by the elected officials, Madison County Commissioners. So I just would say to them that, appreciative that in this case we are going to have our school district made whole. And I certainly hope that in the future they will be circumspect in how they hand out TIFs. Because in the research that I've done on TIFs, unless I'm wrong, and I'm open to being corrected on this, they're for blighted land. I don't consider the land at 33 in Post Road or in 161 corridor into Plain City to be blighted land. I don't consider the land on 42 from Industrial Parkway into Plain City to be blighted land. So, nevertheless, I can in good conscience allow the burden to be placed on our residents for the future financial obligations of our district to be placed on them when it could be provided by TIF. So that's one explanation for why I'll go the way I will in a few minutes. But I would encourage the community to become very interested in this, because we're talking about an 800-acre parcel or 2,000-acre development, and there will be future TIFs. Again, I want to stress that the Madison County Commissioners could have imposed on us a 10-year TIF where the district would have received significantly less tax income for the increase in value of that land once it's developed. And I would also say that I had an incorrect assumption when I entered into this that the developers were the bad guys. The developers are businessmen. They're going to cut the best business deal they can. It's in the power of the county commissioners require of the developers certain levels of financial commitment. I think there's money to be made, ample money to be made off the land we're talking about that would attract developers to these projects regardless of how attractive a TIF is presented. That's my personal opinion.
I just want to say just as a brief explanation, we've kind of gone over it before, a 10-year 75 TIF can happen with, or doesn't need board approval. So the county can just TIF a land and take that increased tax income and use it without going through any approval. That's state law. It only becomes a question for the board when it goes over 75% of the tax revenue or over 10 years. And the request on this is for us to approve a 30-year, 100% TIF. So it's going to last for 30 years. It's 100% of the additional tax income.
The
And
district will receive 100%.
And along with the ask to get the school district to approve it, the county has agreed to carve out school district money and reimburse us for any money that we would have gotten without the TIF. So the school district will be made whole on this. But again, I second Mr. Hooley's comments. I would very much encourage the community to get involved and get knowledgeable quickly.
Don't be afraid to engage with the commissioners on letting them know that you want all their schools to be protected. And while this TIF will not make whole our police and fire districts, I think you can all understand that additional development in the area puts a serious strain on our police and fire services.
The only thing that I'll add, it's not just the county commissioners, it's also township trustees, village council members. I am, quite frankly, pretty disappointed that no representatives from the county are here tonight. We're gifting them with $36 million potentially with this vote. So I prepared a statement for Mr. Kell with the county, and I'd like to read that for you tonight if you guys would entertain me. Mr. Kell, while I appreciate, just a little backstory, just to read this. The county was here a month ago, for anybody that was here. They presented to us a TIF, a 30-year TIF. In the interim between then and now, we asked for some questions and we asked the county to rein in what they would be willing to spend this TIF revenue on, and through some back and forth, they ultimately said, you know, we're just going to do a 1075. Luckily, we were fortunate to be able to get the 3100 back on.
In the 1075, we would have received 25% of
the revenue.
It's a little misleading. You hear 75 and you think we're going to get 3/4, but as it is now in the 3100, we're going to get 100% of what we'll get off, what we would get off the increase in value of the land tax
Because
wise.
it's a non-school TIF.
Because
It doesn't have to do with the 100%.
But if it had been a 1075, we would get 25%. So when I talk about as a fiduciary of the district, protecting the district to get the most tax revenue possible, it's a significant difference in what the district would get if we were imposed a 1075, which again, as Mrs. Walker said, we don't get to vote on this. We're thankful that the commissioners have allowed us to vote on this 3100. And Bill, just explain who Dave Kell is, what his role is.
Dave Kell is the Assistant Economic Development Director for Madison County. Okay, Mr. Kell, with all that being said, Mr. Kell, while I appreciate your willingness to make us part of the process, I am disappointed in how this played out. You came to us a month ago with an ask for a 3100 non-school TIF. This board was okay with that ask in spirit, but thoroughly explained to you our concerns about TIF funds being diverted away from voter-approved critical public services and instead being used to subsidize developer costs. We asked that you provide us with assurances this would be carried out, and you sat before us at our last meeting and made that commitment. Since then, the response was for the county commissioners to issue what seems to be an extremely punitive directive to proceed with the 1075, which would rob our students of 75% of the tax revenue from this project for the next decade and shift the burden on the rest of the taxpayers of JA because we weren't willing to simply fall in line and do as we were told and to just trust you. I'm guessing this measure is going to pass, not because my colleagues on the board believe in this process, your vision, or trust you, but because the county commissioners have strong-armed them into a position between choosing to fund our schools or asking for accountability. We repeatedly asked for you to guarantee this money would be spent responsibly. You could have chosen to attach the developer agreement to this TIF, but nothing compelled you to do so, so you didn't. Likewise, Ohio Revised Code, which dictates how TIF funds can be used, is overly broad and not at all prescriptive, so nothing will compel you to use this money for true public infrastructure, except your word. The commitment you made a month ago here in public, the commitment you made to me, and I'm assuming others on this board, in multiple phone calls. I'm voting no because I'm extremely worried about how you and the county commissioners are choosing to fund growth on the backs of taxpayers and the long-term downstream impacts on our community. I know I will be keeping a close eye on how these TIF dollars are spent, and I hope the people of Jonathan Alder and Madison County educate themselves on this practice and hold you and their elected leaders accountable for being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. So since Mr. Kell isn't here, I'll send it to him in email.
Yeah, I think for me, I just feel like the commissioners, trustees, people that are opposing these things are doing so as a money grab to take advantage really of the taxpayers who know little to nothing. The majority of the community members will know little to nothing about this entire process. And were we to be as educated as we could be, there would be a lot more pushback on them. But I think they're just taking advantage and doing something that is really unnecessary to develop very prime real estate that is very desirable. And I can't in good conscience take advantage of other public entities that are serving our community that are going to miss out on the money, to the detriment of everyone except for the school. I feel like for me, it's about the big picture. And yes, the school would get less money. We would still be getting more money than we are already getting because we're still going to get tax monies, maybe just not as much as we could have right away. So for me, I'm not supporting the TIF for those reasons.
Since we're also putting our position out there, I will vote yes on that, primarily because of our kids. Our district is growing dramatically. Our school system needs the financial support. I think it's in our school district's best interest to vote yes on this. I share all your concerns about the process. Many of your points. I just feel when I think about our kids and our families and how important education is to this community, the right thing for me to do is to vote yes.
Roll call?
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Votak,
Yes.
Mr. Hooley,
Yes.
Mr. McCartney,
No.
Mrs. Detweiler.
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, our next regular board meeting is scheduled for November 12th, Tuesday, and it's located at the Jonathan Alder High School at 5 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn the October 21st, 2021 meeting? Roll call.
Mrs. Detweiler.
Yes.
Mr. Hooley.
Yes.
Mr. McCartney.
Yes.
Mr. Votak.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.